Welcome to the UGC EPG Pathshala lecture series in computer science. In this series of lectures, we have been concentrating on software engineering. This will be a continuation of previous session where we have started with requirements engineering, and today I will be talking more on the requirements elicitation techniques. So the learning objectives for today's session include we may have to ensure delivery of high quality systems. For delivery of high quality systems, initially we may have to understand the end user requirements. We collect requirements from different stakeholders also, so that it becomes more quality centric, so that we will try to avoid the gaps between the end users and the developers. To provide method for a method of eliciting data from different sources. Basically this is done to maximize on the productivity issues. So those are the three main objectives that with which we are concentrating on this requirements elicitation process. To talk more about the requirements elicitation, this requirements elicitation includes all activities involved in discovering the requirements of a system. So whenever we wanted to develop any specific system, we try to discover as many requirements as possible, so that those become feasible enough to develop the software. So system developers and engineers work in close relationship with customer and end users, basically to find out more about the problem that is to be solved, and to understand the major functionalities of the system, to prove that the efficiency of the system is too heavy, thereby increasing the performance of the system, and to look out for the hardware constraints, and many. Of the requirements engineering process, which includes requirements elicitation, requirements analysis, system design, object design, implementation and testing, requirements elicitation being the key process, where at the end of requirements elicitation process we will come out with a simple model called use case model. And this use case model, if the problem is found to be very complex, can be expressed in different flows. So as I have already indicated, this will be a diagrammatic representation which will give out more details about the specific product that is to be developed. So what we tend to do is we try to express this model either in format of application domain objects, which I have presented here in terms of a class diagram or so. Then it will be converted to a structured diagram where we will be able to find out the subsystems with which we can develop the entire software. And the same can be realized by the solution domain objects, and further it can be implemented by classes and can be verified by the different test cases. So during the elicitation process itself, we are making the entire process very clear, so that it does not have any problem and it checks for the feasibility of the software that is to be developed. So here comes the top 10 requirements that will be trapped to avoid overgoing on the requirements engineering phase. Basically, the primary thing that we may have while developing the software will be on the requirements. So people will tend to provide, yesterday we have talked about some syndromes also, S-but syndrome and things like that. People may not be very clear. If suppose I am taking a stakeholder, stakeholders may not be very clear on what is their requirements. So they might have confusion over their requirements that they are trying to specify. There will be inadequate customer involvement. Most of the customers will want a software of a format, but they may not want to involve themselves towards the development. And sometimes they will try to provide very vague idea of a software, and it is ambiguous also. So the requirements becomes very unclear. So and they don't have priorities set to the requirements, it becomes unprioritized requirements. Building the functionality which no one uses, and there will be analysis paralysis, there will be no scope for improvement, and there will be inadequate change process, insufficient change impact analysis, and inadequate version control. So these could be the major traps with respect to the requirements engineering phase. When you look at the basic elicitation activities that is to be performed, as we have looked at already, there will be application domain understanding. So what we will tend to do is, we will have to study on the scope of the re-engineering phase, where it will be major of a plot on why we need such kind of a software, what does it solve, and who are the major end users who will be using the system. So these things are to be answered at the initial level itself when we are doing the requirement study. So as a phase of requirements, the system as is has got problems, opportunities, and the knowledge about the entire phase of the system, and this is what is to be converted into a system that the end users require. So in that particular case, we have to be very clear on the objectives that we are about to meet. So to meet out the objectives, our requirements are to be very clear, and we may have to work on a case model, different case studies whereby the constraints are clearly met, and there are some assumptions which this software might have to go through. So this will clear the different services, or this will encompass the different services that the system is supposed to have. So this talks about what of a system. At the next level, this will be assigned to different level of users who will be responsible for what of the system. So when we wanted to develop a system, a new kind of a system, we should basically mention them for whom this will be useful. So why of the system need to be clearly understood with a list of clear objectives. So that becomes the primary motive of this requirements engineering phase, which comes out with a problem understanding, and what kind of business does it take it over. So business understanding the needs and constraints of the various stakeholders. Looking at the requirements engineering process, this requirements engineering process establish the overall organizational objectives. Look at this diagram for example. This requirements engineering process has got 4 different phases. One is called establish the objects, understand the background of the system, organize the knowledge, collect the requirements. Whenever we wanted to do a simple research, we may have to understand the various objects that are involved in the system. We may have to do a background study of who are or who were using what kind of a system, why is this system required. Then we understand all the knowledge, we sequence it in some fashion which we call it as structured organization, by where we will collect and which will be helpful for the subsystem design. So we are trying to understand why is this kind of a system necessary. So by way of establishing the objects, we are making our system very clear on the business goals, the problem that is to be addressed, and the various constraints that the system will undergo. At the same time, when we are about to study on the background process of the entire system, we are about to study on the structure of the organization. The organization basically have a top-down structure or a bottom-up structure or a hybrid structure. In that specific case, what kind of system will suit for this application software. Say the organizational structure need to be initially understood, then we will look at the application domain with which the system has to be built, and some existing systems are also to be studied. Likewise, organize the knowledge. In case of organizing the knowledge, we may have to identify the stakeholders. We will go for the prioritization of various goals. Many a times the stakeholders or the users don't want prioritization, but then as developers we may have to prioritize the entire goals, and the domain knowledge filtering are also very much essential. So after we complete on this organization knowledge, we may have to go in for the collecting of different requirements. So requirements from various phases, like we will collect requirements from the stakeholders, we will collect requirements from the domain, we will have organizational requirements also. So these kind of requirements are adopted from different phases. So all these 4 phases which we have given are interlinked together, so that at any point in time we can switch between the states. So this helps us gather and understand more background information about the system. The first 2 phases are to establish the objects and understand the background of the system. As in the case, The second two phases are to organize and collect the requirements. So when we are about to do the organization, we prioritize and collate the large amount of data collected in the previous phase, and this involves the system stakeholder to discover what they need. So their requirements are clearly understood. After we elicit all the requirements, now it is a point of analysis. We have not discussed about the various methods or techniques with which we are collecting all the elicitation. We will look at that in detail. But once we are done with the gathering of requirements, we are taking it to the next level called requirements analysis. This requirements analysis checks for the necessity of this kind of a requirement. So there will be a necessity check where the requirements don't contribute to business goals. There will be some consistency and completeness check where there will be no contradictions. There will be another phase which is called feasibility check, which will check for whether the system is feasible to be developed within the budget and within the schedule. And there will be another phase which will be called requirements discussion, which will generally highlight the requirements and discuss on the possible problematic elements. And we try to prioritize all the requirements in terms of the criticality mentioned. Finally, it will be taken to the agreement phase where compromised for a set of agreed requirements. So whatever that is feasible within schedule, within the allocated budget, it will be compromised with the stakeholders. Looking at the requirements analysis process, this is how it will be. There will be a phase of requirement analysis and there will be a phase of requirement negotiation, as we have seen. Requirement analysis initially takes up necessity checking, which collects unnecessary requirements, and this will be put forth to the requirements committee for further discussion. And there will be a negotiation phase where whether this kind of requirements are required or not will be discussed. At the same time, for consistency and completeness check, it is quite required that some of the constraints may not be satisfactory. So it will check for the incomplete requirements. So once there are some certain incomplete requirements, those cannot be taken up for the next stage. So that will be prioritized low. So once we are about to prioritize as a high, then it means it is very clear. And finally, it is taken to a feasibility checking where infeasible requirements are taken out and it is negotiated for at the phase of requirements agreement. So there are some problems that might come out as a process of requirements elicitation. Stakeholders majorly does not know what they really want. So this is in connection with the syndromes that we have seen in the earlier sessions. Stakeholders express requirements in their own terms. So they might express their need in terms of their native language, which might sometimes be difficult for us to convert that into the actual phase of development. Different stakeholders may have conflicting requirements. So if you connect yourself between two different stakeholders, the expectation of two different stakeholders will be in a different format. So in that specific juncture, you may not be able to justify or specify appropriate justification to both of them. So organizational and political factors may also influence the system requirements. This is quite meager. So the requirements change during the analysis process. So new stakeholders may emerge and the business environment can automatically change. So these are some of the problems which we might encounter when we are about to do on elicitation process. So here comes some of the techniques of elicitation. This already I have just hinted out with different elicitation techniques. Now that we will see everything in detail. I can have an interview which can be either a closed interview or an open interview, where closed interview typically means I will prepare a questionnaire. Based upon that questionnaire, what the stakeholders respond, I will come out with a definition. And open interview is I dynamically ask some questions for which the stakeholders will respond again. And there are a list of questionnaires which is prepared already for which the answers are to be clearly given. There cannot be options of, say, one questionnaire cannot have an option of two. And we may have to understand the background also of the same, say, company in terms of its profile, what kind of products that they have developed already, so that they are going into the next phase. So that at times we may have to read it. And Introspection is another technique that is quite possible, because we may have to study on the emotional and the expressions that these stakeholders provide to us. And there will be group of people who are known towards, say if I am going to do on analysis of various users, how they respond, whether they like it or dislike it, then I can initially study on the same. In case if this software is about to be rolled out, I can do a social analysis and say that this software will be a hit. It's because so many people have responded very positively for this software. And at times I will try to create requirements workshop also. This workshop is a closed workshop wherein different ideas can root through. And there can be brainstorming sessions whereby different ideas can be generated. So idea generation is also the same, and we can have some storyboarding also, where we can simply draft or sketch with a simple pictorial representation which might benefit a lot, and this is not too costly affair also to develop. And there can be scripted walkthrough between one community and the other community. There can be CRC cards, ethnography, natural language descriptions and form analysis. Now that we will try to understand each and every technique in detail, looking on the interview perspective of it, this interview is very simple, direct technique that can be used in nearly every situation. We might have come across so many interviews, so interview might benefit us a lot. In this method, the requirement engineering analysts discuss with different types of stakeholders to understand the requirements, various requirements of the system. The interviews can be either of a closed interview type or an open interview type. To talk more about the interviews and the type of interviews, closed interviews are nothing but the requirements engineer prepares some predefined questions. So I will come out with a questionnaire which I would have shared it with the stakeholders, and they will try to respond for all my questions, and he tries to get the answers from those questions from the stakeholders. Whereas open interview is the other way around, where there will not be any predefined questions and he tries to get the answer instantaneously in open discussions. So closed-ended questions generally has an answer of yes or no response, whereas open-ended questions gives us very brief answers that later on needs to be sketched properly. The other method, before getting on to the other method, we may have to understand the context of the interview also. So when we are about to study on the context of the interview, we may have to understand the profile of the users. So we may have to initially study on the profile of the users, how well they will respond to our questions. Say if it is a very closed-ended questions, they can take time and prepare and then come back, whereas in case of open-ended interview, the stakeholders may not be flexible or may not be comfortable enough to express what they wanted in an open questionnaire. So we may have to understand the user profile. Further, we may have to assess the problem that we are discussing with. We may have to understand the user environment also. We may have to at time recap, that means study on the background for detailed understanding. Analysis input on users' problems, assessing the solution, assessing the opportunities, assessing the reliability and the support that this software might require, and finally wrapping up with the analysis summary. The other technique that we have towards this requirements elicitation is on the preparing the questionnaire. So when we are about to prepare a questionnaire, we have to be very clear that it will be in a manual form, paper-based form, or it can be either be in an electronic form by soft copy distributed through email, or we can now we can create a Google Doc, Google form, where we can fill it up with a say specified answers, with a text box, with a choice button, with a open-ended button, or some choose but menu, all these things. The effectiveness of this particular question depends on the design of the questionnaire, how well we are about to design the questionnaire. Not only that, the respondents of those questionnaires, how confident they are, how honest they are to respond to those questions. It cannot be simply like 5 to all the questions that we have posted, which seems to be very high or very low, or 0 at the another case. So the honesty of the respondent's reply is as much required. and the effective questionnaire can be used to decide the actual user requirements, preparing the objectives and the constraints. Talk more about the design of the questionnaire. The purpose of the survey need to be clearly defined. So why are we doing this survey? For what community of people this survey will be helpful, will be clearly defined. So the sampling group of the respondents of the survey should be decided. This clearly state why the respondent was selected for the questionnaire and provide clear instructions on how to complete the questionnaire. Further, it is to avoid asking two questions in one, which means there cannot be two subsections. If yes, then we may have to proceed for another question. It cannot be the case like that. So do not ask questions to give clues to the answers. Keep the questionnaire very brief, and it should be user friendly. You cannot ask the respondents to give a very brief answer or a detailed answer. It can be of a, say, choosing either one of the types, or it can be of a menu like. So preparing and developing the questionnaire is at most plays a vital role. Conducting the questionnaire process, gathering and analyzing on the results. And a study says 30 to 50% return rate for paper and email questionnaires, people try to respond, and 5 to 30% return rate for web based questionnaires. Now the scenario is slowly trying to change. Why? Because people are very much into the machine nowadays, so they try to respond more when it has been given in the through email or web based communities. To work better on the system or to produce more quality oriented system, we may have to study on the background of the software or the company or the organization. So we may have to gather the information about the organization, which is helpful to gain an understanding of organization structure, its working platform and its existing system. So different sources of information which need for the background study are the company reports. We may have to work on the organizational charts, we may look at the policy manual, we will go for the documentation of existing systems, and this will be appropriate when the working environment is not so clear. As I have already told, introspection has been another technique within this requirements elicitation process. Through introspection, what we will try to do is the analyst imagines what kind of a system is required. So he takes his emotional background, that is what the figure is also indicating. What kind of system will the stakeholders be able to respond? So the analyst imagines what kind of a system is required for doing the required job, or by using some available equipment. So this is used when end user is not available, not willing to answer the questions and show a lack of feedback. So he may not be able to answer to the questionnaire, he may not be open for the interviews. So in that particular juncture, it's something like I look at the mirror. If in case I wanted the same software for my use, what would be the requirement for the software? And the other technique will be on the social analysis aspect of it. This is also called as observation from the social community. So what we will try to do is we will collect requirements by observing the people doing their normal work, and we will try to find the additional requirements needed by the user when the user is unable to explain their expected requirements. And this social analysis can be taken up over different phases, over different types, like passive observation. We are situated at one location, we analyze it very passively, and we actively observe them. We get in touch with them, we ask them a questionnaire, we go along with them, we collect the different requirements from them, and there will be explanatory observation also. With respect to the passive observation, the social analysis is carried out without the direct involvement of the observer in the society. So he does not go into the society and he observes it very passively. So the observation of the people work is carried out by recording using videotapes, video cameras and surveillance cameras, from where we will understand the mental situation of the users. So the documentation of the problem and requirements are prepared only from the recorded data. So whatever data that is available in the background or which are similar to the user group, from that I will be able to come out with a derivation. Whereas same is not the case when we go for the active observation. In the active observation, the social analysis is carried out with the direct involvement with the observer in the society. The observers encourage people to work with the existing product to perform the operations on the product. The observer provides the domain knowledge to the user and makes the report of the requirements of the people by observing their day-to-day work with the product. An explanatory observation, which is the third component or third type of social analysis. In this type of observation, the user explains what they are doing while using the product. So whenever we are trying to use the product, at the simultaneously we will be able to mention what is required at this juncture. We will provide appropriate explanations there. So the observer takes note using the explanation given by the user. The other technique that we may employ during the elicitation phase will be on the conducting of workshops. So a requirement workshop is a collaborative event in which a selected group of stakeholders work together to discover, create, verify and document requirements, deliverables and work products. It tries to collect all the key stakeholders together for a short but strongly focused period, maybe for a day or two. I'll try to gather all the stakeholders together at a particular location where there will be a facilitator who will be explaining what type of requirements that the stakeholders needed. And all the stakeholders are initially supposed to be the participants who can either be a sponsor, who can be a content participant, facilitator and recorder. So from which we are making the entire requirement work. So the team members actually create, review and complete the important requirement deliverables. The facilitator actually tries to manage the entire group process. The recorder documents it, he writes down the entire script, documents it, he is actually supposed to be a scribe, the entire group's work as it proceeds, and there will be some warm-up materials like project specific information, which will be like drafts of requirement documents, suggested features, copies of interviews, analysis reports on industry trends, bug reports and existing system like. And there can also be a working model which will talk of out of box thinking preparation. Somebody can come out with a totally different perception of the problem, and that can also be popped out during the phase of the workshop. During this phase of workshop, there will be a facilitator who will be actively involved the understanding of the stakeholders' needs. So the role of a facilitator is to basically establish the professional and objective tone to the meeting. He will start the actual group discussion or the discussions that is to happen between the stakeholders, and he is the one who stops the meeting on time. His role will be establish and enforce the rules of the meeting, and he will be the one who will be introducing the goals and agenda for the meeting, and he is the actual manager to keep on the time and the track with which it has to go. So this facilitator facilitates a process of decision and consensus making, but avoid participating in the content. He'll make certain that all the stakeholders participate and have their input heard. So this is something similar to a group discussion that happens everywhere. So he is under control, troublesome and unproductive behavior that is happening. He controls those things that is happening in the workshop. So some of the major problems and solutions that we come across during this workshop, if you look at the problems, managing the time would be very cumbersome, and it's difficult to get going after the breaks and lunch, where every stakeholders have to come back and start the process on time. So it will be a grandstanding, dominant positions, lack of input sometimes from the stakeholders. There will be a lot of negative comments, irrelevant behaviors and turf wars that can happen during the phase of why? Because we are trying to employ almost all the stakeholders for the workshop, and there will be some fading energy after the lunch, post lunch session, so they may not be quite interested. So the facilitator actually have to facilitate by looking at these problematic issues. And some of the suggestions that we have for these workshops, for these kind of conducting workshops, will be facilitator keeps a time for all breaks and finds anyone who is late for it. Everyone gets 5-minute position statement for them to express themselves. Facilitator encourages everyone to use 5-minute position and great idea ticket, use cheap short tickets as others cost money, light lunches, afternoon breaks, rearrange seating. So this could make the entire program very active. So summary of this particular session, we have started with saying requirements elicitation techniques. This elicitation helps us to identify as many requirements in the beginning stage itself as possible, and we have also identified top 10 traps to avoid during the elicitation phase, and we have understood on the requirements elicitation process, and we have also seen the problems that we may come across in the requirements elicitation process, and we are about to see few of our techniques during the phase of requirements elicitation. Thank you.